It's so different. And so the effect it has on our brain is like, it's completely different. Which is why, I think it does two main things. But the first one is that it messes up your sexuality. Second one is that it numbs your dopamine system. Now, the sexuality thing is easy to explain, right? I think pretty much everyone that has watched porn knows this. The first time you ever open up a website, it doesn't matter, right? You see any of the thumbnails and all of them freak you out. Like literally every video, you can click a random thumbnail and you're like, wow, it blows your mind, right? It's a very exciting experience. Mm-hmm. But then you start to do it more often. Well, not just any thumbnail does it anymore, but you need a specific one. You start looking around. You say, oh no, this one doesn't got it for me. I'm going to watch this one. Or you start watching a specific category, right? You start searching for something like stepsister or MILF. You start to become dependent on that. Now, after a while, several years later, you're not searching for MILF, but you're searching for like interracial cuckolding or whatever. I mean, I get so many people messaging me that are just completely addicted to one very specific category. And usually it's something specific like cuckolding or whatever. And you sort of have conditioned yourself to get a fetish. You've rewired your brain. And so when you're conditioned to be dependent on this thing, and even when it isn't cuckolding, but even if it's something relatively harmless like a stepsister or a MILF, it's still something specific. And so when you end up with a real person, you're going to have trouble enjoying the real thing. Maybe you're going to have trouble getting an erection. Maybe you're going to have trouble keeping an erection or having it at like full strength, because a lot of people think, well, I can still get it up, but really it's like an 80-90% of what it could have been. You know, it's not a full strength, because your brain is constantly looking for more, because you've been conditioning yourself to be so dependent on porn. And I think that's one of the main things. And the other main thing is the dopamine thing. Now, dopamine, for those that don't know what dopamine is, it's like this, it's a neurotransmitter that drives the reward and motivation system in our brain. So from like an evolutionary perspective, whenever we did something that was evolutionarily satisfying to us, like we ate food, we built a fire, we won a fight, whatever it was, we got a hit of dopamine, because it's like the mechanism that tells us this was a good thing. You want to do this stuff again. It's reward and motivation. And so from this evolutionary perspective, obviously sex, procreating is like the end goal, right? I mean, sure, eating food is important, but in some way we just do this so that in the end we get to pass on our DNA. And so we can see in the scientific literature as well that the amount of dopamine we get from sexual stimuli is just through the roof. It's just insane. And here's the problem. We get so much dopamine from sexual stimuli, but the availability of sexual stimuli is now so large, as we just talked about. It's possible to see more naked ladies in a single viewing session than our ancestors would have seen in an entire lifetime. Right. It gives us so much dopamine that it's more dopamine than our brain can handle. And what happens if our brain receives too much of a neurotransmitter or like a hormone? We can see the same thing with type 2 diabetes, for example. The receptors start to go numb. What we see in people with type 2 diabetes, they have more than enough insulin, but their body has gone numb to the insulin because the receptors have shut off. And the same thing
mechanism.
Yeah, same thing happens to dopamine. So when you bombard your brain with dopamine all the time, and watching porn is one of the most effective ways to bombard your brain with dopamine, right, the dopamine receptors start to go numb. And the whole system stops to function. It starts to function less. And the problem is the dopamine system is the stuff that drives reward and motivation. So when your dopamine receptors start to go numb, your whole life starts to sort of feel less rewarding. Yeah, things don't feel fun anymore. You play a video game and it just doesn't feel fun. You watch a movie and you're like, in the past movies were more fun. Motivation as well. Your long-term motivation, how hyped you are to work towards your goals, your long-term goals, and your long-term thinking processes. All of these things are dependent on your dopamine. And so as you numb your dopamine, all of that starts to sort of stop functioning. Well, stop functioning. It starts to function less. And that's the thing with porn. It doesn't happen to everyone, but porn can be one of the most effective, if not the most effective way to destroy your dopamine system. And I think it's happening to a lot of people. It certainly happened to me, and I can see it happening in a lot of other people as well.